No.
Okay, thank you.
Is it okay if I'm here?
Yeah, but I'm not Chris, actually, so yeah. Okay. So, thank you so much for joining. Really amazing to have this opening panel. And at first place, before we shortly introduce you, I would just kindly ask to have the Slido question here on the main stage so that we ask some questions to the audience to make it more engaging and interactive. So, from my left to the right, who I have Cristiana Caldarelli from Lilly. How are you doing? All fine?
Yeah, everything is great.
Fantastic. Justin Molavi from Genentech, what do you prefer?
Genentech. Oh, I mean, that's how I pronounce it, yes.
Okay, thank you. And Nikki from Salesforce.com. Nikki, same question for you. All fine?
All set, ready to go.
Fantastic.
Thank
Good.
you.
So let's deep dive into the opening panel, which I think is the most ambitious discussion, because at the end of the day, we should set the stage for the rest of the 2 days. And I remember our preparation call, and you just made a very interesting statement, which is we have like reps who are still focused on human-to-human engagements, which certainly is the case, but some of those are even visiting barbecues from HCPs, right? So is that a good thing or a bad thing when we speak about the whole engagement structure and delivering customer experience? Maybe you can start with that.
Well, thank you for bringing this up. I think it's a challenge we all face where we are trying to influence our reps and we say, hey, we might know a little bit more about the customer or we might know something different. They said, I've went to their kids' graduations. I've been at their barbecues. I've flipped a burger with them. It's very hard to pierce that particular barrier because they do believe that they know their customer better, but at the same time, they're not right behind the screen or right there when a prescription is being made. And plus, a lot of other people are talking to them, and a lot of other people are at the barbecues. So how do we change that?
Exactly. And maybe he's even the only guest there, right? You never know. Yeah. Cristiana, before we go to Nikki, what's your statement and point of view on that? Is that a KPI which is valuable or which actually is even not necessary to track?
Well, so let me say, I think that there are some countries where the relationships are much more important than others, and we are used to different engagements. So in some places of the world, what's important is that you're there and you see the customer many times, even just not pitching to them or detailing, but just seeing them as a sign of respect, because the more time you see them, the more important they are to you. There are others, for example, where I'm coming from, I come from Italy, where actually the relationship is very important. Why? Because that relationship brings trust with it, right? You're seeing the customer for a long time. I don't know if they've been invited maybe for a pizza instead of a graduation, but there is that trust element. And so for me, it's important as long as we think about what is adding to that engagement. And when we think about customer experience, definitely the trust is at the base. And for me, the other two things that are very important is that you still bring value to the customer. So yes, it could be a social, but at the end of the day, when they're at work, is there value that you bring to them in terms of additional information, in terms of maybe breaking some news, which becomes more and more difficult in our world nowadays. And the third thing is also, do you make their life simple in some way?
Exactly.
So maybe you help them with a registration to the next in Dubrovnik, for example. So this is, I think, where really the value of the Salesforce is, and that value of the relationship can help in addition to everything that we can provide centrally.
Makes perfect sense.
Let me add to that too. I think it's absolutely right that the relationship is key to all of this, but we also have to be open to learning more about the customer through all sorts of
Opti-channel
ways where some channels work, some channels don't.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Nikki, how do you see that? And are anyone putting like a barbecue as a visit in Salesforce.com CRM?
It's not a specific KPI that I'm aware of, but I think to echo some of those comments made earlier, the relationship is just the absolute cornerstone and has been for decades. And I don't think that we're focused on, removing that, because those relationships are so valuable. But I think when we look to the future of the engagement, how can we make that more impactful? How can we gather the insights into those relationships so that when we're in the field, we can have that human-to-human connection that we've always had, but also layering in on top some of those insights that can be really beneficial in the field. So I don't think it's a bad thing, to your question earlier, but I think it's, the relationship is so vital, but I do think that method of how we look at KPIs and how we engage does need to evolve how the industry is evolving, because we've got such a blockbuster event at the moment, we're living in it, and so how can we use that to our advantage so that when our reps are in the field, when they're at the barbecues, and those barbecues represent that trust and that rapport, but how can we bring all that together with the technology backbone behind us? So I don't think it's bad, but I do think the KPIs do need to evolve to keep up with the way the industry is going.
You mentioned several very interesting insights, Nikki, so maybe let's remain with you and ask what then, in your opinion, and would be actually the foundation of proper customer experience?
So I think the foundation of proper customer experience...
Maybe some secret ingredients.
Yeah, okay, secret ingredient. Okay, so I'll start with the foundations first. I think for me there are three core foundations. First is the data. So what data do you have? The data that you do have, is it clean? Can you use it? The second pillar for me would be, how do you activate that data? So how do you make that data work for you? Whether it's the Opti-channel engagement or the personalization, how can you use the data you have to work for you and your business? And third would be, for me, and to your point earlier, that trust. So trust is just such a vital part of our industry, but trust in every sense of the word. So between peer-to-peer, human-to-human, company-to-company, HCP to HCP, even to patient. So, really making sure that you're using that data in a trusted way, in ethical ways as well, to really help the full ecosystem. So they would be my three core pillars. Secret ingredient, though, that's an interesting one. So I think I've been at Salesforce for the last 7 years, working across all of our HLS customers, and I think if there's one thing that I could put my finger on, whether or not our customers are successful in their endeavours to make the customer experience holistic, it would be whether or not my clients have the alignment, leadership alignment across all divisions of the business. Because I think that executive sponsorship and alignment is really going to drive that cultural change that we really need to use AI and to bring data into ways to swarm around the customer experience. So I think that in terms of my three core pillars, it would be data, how to activate the data, and trust. And then in terms of the secret ingredient, it would be that real leadership piece. And sorry, I know you wanted to jump in, but just one more quick thing. The leadership piece, not just drives the cultural change that we need, but also, creates that environment that we are trying to lean into a little bit more, to open the mindset, to be flexible. So when those insights do come in, we're ready to act on them, and we're working in a little bit more of a faster pace than perhaps we're all used to.
Thank you for that. I wanted to add to what you said. The secret ingredient makes sense. I think just diving it in a little bit lower too. Even if we have executive alignment, that doesn't mean that the rest of the organization is aligned, albeit the executives are aligned. We need incentives, process, and governance that push people to put the customer at the center. So are you incentivized by putting customer at the center, or are you incentivized by the barbecue? And we often see in the industry that we're just incentivized by the relationship. We're not incentivized by pushing into a different direction, because sometimes we don't have competition in a particular country, or we've won that particular national health contract. But we can do better as an industry, and there's a question here that I wanted to address too. What about a fourth pillar, measurement? How do we know we're doing well at these particular things? And there's a feedback loop, not just we're calling it customer experience, you have to do it, but we're measured by it, and we understand whether we're having an effect. So thank you for that.
That's a good point. Mr. Anonymous asked actually that question, so thank you for replying on that. Cristiana?
Yeah, no, what I wanted to add on that is that at the end of the day, I really loved your slide with Spider-Man, right? Is AI the evolution? Is omnichannel? Omnichannel was my baby, you just killed it. Do you realize what that does to me emotionally after spending 5 years of my time? But the point, it is an evolution, but the common human factor is that we all need to live with the evolution. And if you look at the Salesforce, we have very different generation within the Salesforce, and there are some that have been changing so much probably during their time, and there are some that are just coming new, the new Gen Z. But the key part is that everybody will need to change. So I think that in addition to that is probably also understanding or explaining the purpose. And I know that very simply when we're starting to introduce some tools for us in the Salesforce, the key point was, the old pushback was, oh, is this AI going to replace me? Am I going to be out of work? And we simply said, look, this is not going to replace you, but people in the Salesforce, they use it, are going to replace those ones that don't use it. And I think that from that perspective, it's a kind of, you're going to evolve, Darwinism or not, and are you going to decide what you're going to focus on? The other thing for me, and I don't know, I'm not very good at following all of the questions, but there are other things about, is CRM dead, what do we need, and so on. I guess the key part for me is, again, in this world, and maybe it's a moment that I'm living where I'm in a little bit of a very, very full moment. Everything that is simple and we made simple for people will actually succeed. So is CRM going to die? I don't think so. And I don't know whether we will evolve it and call it, CRM AI or whatever. But the key point is the more we make it simple for people to use, to retrieve data, to update it, to actually give us insight, as to Nikki's point, the more we will continue to use it.
Exactly.
Sorry, I just feel I have to answer the question, is CRM dead?
No!
I just feel very obligated to.
I mean, we are killing everything this morning. We are killing CRM, omnichannel, so...
Dario's letting us.
So just from our perspective, perhaps the CRM is not going to reflect the CRM of the future. So the way we use CRM today, maybe the idea of CRM is dead. But in terms of how we look to the future of engagement, that's what we're really trying to build for at the moment, is we understand the adoption for CRM in pharma has been this system of record. No one's enjoyed using it. It's just, that Friday afternoon at the end of the week. It's amazing how productive reps are Friday night, 5 o'clock, when they're home and they're logging everything. But for us, it's now understanding that, recognizing it, and making a tool that's helpful to the rep. So they're going to want to use it. So again, to layer on all the insights, the next best actions, the content, the personalized content, giving them clues into, does this HCP prefer digital interactions on these particular dates, or do they include do they prefer, rather, human to human? So it's how can we make that CRM useful to the field when we're thinking about that future engagement. So thank you for that, I appreciate it.
I think what's dead is our organizations trying to sell a particular technology to itself, as opposed to starting to the particular pain point. What's the pain point of the rep? How can we make their life easier? What's the pain point of the marketer? How can we make their life easier and build from there? And those could be AI solutions, or they could not be. As opposed to functions, maybe in larger organizations like Roche or Genentech going, please use this technology. Our CEO is very excited about it, versus this is actually useful to you and you can see the value, or we build with you. We almost have to organize ourselves like a tech company. What is the internal customer need? How do we solve for it? And if possible, layer AI on top of it.
Absolutely. Cristiana, would you like to add anything on that? Or?
No, I think that we actually completed the conversation around the use of CRM at least.
Okay, then let's go into the future and speak about AI. So what do you think and how actually organizations can properly embed AI into commercial, medical, and of course across the whole organization, that somehow it looks synchronized? Because in my opinion, without synchronization, you can't deliver a unique customer experience model, right? So let's start with you, Cristiana, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so first of all, it's very interesting what you're saying about, organizing and coordinating inside the company, because this was one of the key elements for us when we talked about omni-channel, because it was all about, what channels you're using and so on. But for us, it was actually more about how do you get all of your different functions, the sales, the marketing, the medical, the PRA, the corporate affairs and so on, trying to coordinate their activities so that when, we were talking to our customers and most of them were, overlapping activities, we were actually speaking as one voice. So for me, this part about omni-channel is still staying and is very important. AI can help a lot. So can help because can provide, even through a CRM system, can provide us all of the information real life about what's happening, what's the conversation happening with the customers, what they're being involved. But to go back to your questions, I think the key part is about, again, we should not make AI at the center of what we do because it's cool. In fact, it's been cool maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's not cool anymore because everybody's talking about it right now and everybody wants to just, kind of show off what you can do and so on. I think, to your point, the important thing is that we have a business need. We have an opportunity. We have an issue to solve. And we're trying to understand how to do that at the best in 2024, 25, 26. So AI will be a way to get there, but without the business need at the beginning, I think we will experiment a lot and play a lot and, maybe enjoy ourselves a lot, but at the end of the day, we will not really make sure that we build strong roots in the organization.
That's a good statement, yeah.
And I think the only thing is the big barrier for me in doing this at this moment is two. On one side is how do you make the right choices, and on the other side, I think to Nikki's point, is how do you make it happen in a world where our legacy data is really terrible. It's like, so difficult. It's like everybody's so exciting, and then you go there, and then you need to spend 2 years on cleaning the data, and by the time you get there, that solution is already outdated in a way. So if anybody's got any idea on how to do that fast, come and speak to me, because I really like to solve this for us.
The puzzle, yeah. But maybe before we go to Nikki and Justin, I think that also what changed in the last 1 year is basically the expectations of companies, but also of people really change what AI means and what AI can and can't, right? So nowadays we also speak about a new direction, and who knows what the direction will be in just 1 year, right? Justin?
In terms of the next 2 years, what do I see things evolving? One, and it came in question in one of these in Slidos, is how do we understand the impact of what we're doing? If we don't understand the impact of what we're doing, then there's no way to really understand whether it's working. We can force a particular organization to say, do omni-channel, please make the customer experience better. But if we don't start, in this case, with the customer and the marketer, and this is what we're working on now, how do you understand your channels in a deeper way? How are you incentivized by doing better at those things? How do you experiment? Once those 3 let's call them needs, are put together, and then there seems to be a need of using AI for content generation.
Exactly.
Because if you now understand that this channel may not work and you may need to change the message, let's not wait 1.5 years to put content out there. Let's see what the customer needs and then begin orchestrating versus forcing orchestration from the top. So I see measurement, I see Gen AI for content, I see machine learning for other types of data to make sure that the organization can make better decisions, and an embedded understanding that we need to change incentives in the organization so that people can take better actions for the company as opposed to legacy.
Fully agree. Nikki?
I would absolutely echo those points. And the only perhaps additional piece I'd add is to make sure that we're thinking about AI as the enabler rather than, and to your point as well, rather than the goal. That AI is there to help us reach our goals. And something that popped up on the screen here, one of the words was relevance, and that just reminded me of what we saw with the industry and WhatsApp, because there are some regions where if you're not communicating with your HCPs on WhatsApp, you are irrelevant. But the industry, there was that idea that we didn't want to go into WhatsApp. That's not what we were going to do. But then life found a way. And now in particular regions, we are very much communicating with our HCPs directly in WhatsApp. So I feel that some of these pieces are going to repeat themselves in that, if the companies that perhaps are slower to adopt AI, life will find a way. Some of the individuals will find ways, methods, motions to use it in their day-to-day life, even if their workplace isn't. So I think to make it easier on us, if we can lean into that mindset, lean into the fail fast, if you will, test, repeat, try again, experiment. That will be a lot easier for perhaps all of us as an industry as we go through this next stage of engagement.
You mentioned failing, and I think we don't often celebrate failing, but we can really learn many things out of failing. And I know the Lilly approach, which is always like celebrating failing, learning, continuous improvement, and so on. Can you maybe share like the biggest fail which you have in the last year, and what did you learn, and how did you improve that?
Yeah, so first of all, yes, we celebrate fail when it's linked to innovation. So we don't celebrate fail when it's linked to poor execution, to be clear. Fail for us is really an acronym, first attempt in learning. So we are trying to do new things, and we tend to see when things fail. So one of the failure for us is that we were trying actually to implement a next best action for some of the Salesforce. And at the time, my role was actually specifically on the omni-channel, and it was international. And we really failed in one country. And this country had, if you look at all of the different aspects, they had the same quality of data, they had the same kind of leadership support, the same type of training, and so on. And our big failure, to my earlier point, was actually not understanding very well the culture, specifically of that country, and how, if you want the tool, but actually the behavior that needed to change and needed to release the control of deciding which customers to see, when, and so on, was really impacting their, the value that they saw in themselves in a way. So we had to make some adjustment there to really, and one of the things that probably we hadn't done enough is to have more representation from that specific countries in what we were developing, to try and find some solutions to really, get them to, accept that the use of the tool was not diminishing them as professionals that knew actually how to work.
And our reps are attending barbecues again, right?
So I don't know if barbecues were exactly, maybe there are other types of social events.
Okay.
But I think there it was more than because it was not a very high relationship country. I think it was more about the, the type of professional relationship that you had with specific people, and what the activities they were doing meant in that specific culture.
Thank you. Just shortly, Justin and Nikki, who would like to go first?
On failure?
Exactly.
I think where we failed, and it took us a long time to fix it, is having technology that's not relevant for the company, but is AI forward. For instance, we have the technology very much like ChatGPT to mine all of our data and summarize those insights. But if those insights aren't changing behavior or changing the way the business acts, why did we deploy it in the first place?
Exactly.
And it goes back to what is the business need of that particular part of the business to get us to a better customer outcome. And in that case, it's one division or one department saying, I got the technology, I need to deploy it, I want to make the CEO happy. That often creates a lot of disconnect and wasted resources. So now having business needs, creating AI or not AI, is really what we're benefiting from.
Thank you. Nikki, final thoughts?
In terms of perhaps where I've seen my clients struggle and have their challenges and perhaps not receive the outcomes that they had set out to do, I think it's the clarity. I think, to your point, it's the measurements. And I think it's perhaps not completely leaning into the tech and everything it can do. And at Salesforce, you know, we're constantly reinventing ourselves, and that can be interpreted in a couple of ways. Are we failing fast, or are we pivoting because of the market needs? So I think for my clients who are able to pivot, perhaps not, you know, not at the pace that tech companies can, but in a pace, in a timely manner, that's where they can, you know, understand what's gone wrong, adjust, adapt fast enough so that, you know, they haven't sunk a lot of time, effort, energy, resources into one project, but they're able to learn from that really quickly and feed that into the next project.
Thank you, Nikki. With that said, I would like to thank you. We also learned many new words. I didn't even knew that mindset change is one word, or for instance some others. But yeah, you learn every single day, right? So thank you so much for joining, and look into the next conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.